Imagine you take this beautifully aged, like 1920s classic car.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, a real beauty. And you take it into a modern Formula One pit stop.
Right, okay.
You just brought it in because, it's running a little rough after literally a century on the road. And these mechanics, they just swarm it.
Like they do.
Exactly. And they are the best in the world, right? Armed with the most advanced tools imaginable.
Yeah.
But there's a catch. They don't know how to handle old.
Aye.
They only know how to make things fast and new. So they start tearing the engine apart, trying to fix the worn leather, replacing all these original parts with a carbon fiber.
Just aggressively tuning it.
Yes, aggressively tuning it to win a race it was never, ever meant to run. And by the time they're done, the car is technically functional, but it's been completely stripped of its character. It's
Wow.
totally unrecognizable. And today, we are looking at how modern medicine often does, the exact same thing to us at the end of our lives.
It really is a profound and honestly kind of an uncomfortable reality to confront.
Yeah.
Because we built this healthcare system that is just an absolute juggernaut at solving discrete problems, right? But it completely short circuits when it faces a natural process that simply cannot be defeated.
It just doesn't know what to do. And that friction between the unstoppable medical machine and the immovable reality of aging is the foundation of our deep dive today.
It's a huge topic.
It is. We are exploring the core ideas put forward by surgeon and writer Dr. Atul Gawande in his landmark book, Being Mortal, Medicine and What Matters in the End.
Such a powerful book.
It really is. And our mission today is to dissect this massive paradox, how the very strengths of modern medicine might actually be working against us in our final chapters.
Yeah, because Gawande is, he's basically challenging the most fundamental assumptions of his own profession here.
Right, he's on the inside.
Exactly. He forces us to look really closely at the blind spots that were created by our own medical success.
And I want to say right up front to you listening, whether you are, say, prepping for a career in healthcare, or maybe actively navigating these decisions with an aging parent, or even if you are just intensely curious about how our society handles the concept of mortality, this deep dive is going to totally shift how you view the medical system.
Without a doubt.
Okay, let's unpack this. To really understand where medicine goes wrong, I think we first have to establish what it was designed to do so incredibly well, right?
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is that the failures we see in end-of-life care, they're actually a direct byproduct of a century of just unprecedented triumphs.
Because we got so good at it.
We got too good at a very specific thing. For most of human history, a doctor's primary role was actually just to offer comfort and, a prognosis.
Just telling you what was going to happen.
Right. If you got a severe infection or sustained a major injury or experienced complications during childbirth, the doctor basically held your hand and told your family what to expect. Survival was often just a roll of the dice. But over the last century, medicine fundamentally transformed those dangers.
It's like night and day.
Totally. Things that were historically harrowing and fatal, they became manageable inconveniences.
Right, because we developed antibiotics, advanced surgical techniques, vaccines. The medical system learned how to actually intervene.
Intervene and neutralize.
Yes.
Medicine became a science of aggressive intervention. You present a biological crisis, and the doctor deploys this targeted weapon to defeat that crisis.
Like a mechanic fixing the blown tire.
Exactly like your analogy.
Yeah.
The entire culture of medicine shifted. Doctors became problem solvers. Death and disease were no longer viewed as natural outcomes. They became the enemy.
The enemy to be defeated at all costs.
Right. And for decades, that mindset worked absolute miracles. But the machinery hits a concrete wall when it faces the inescapable realities of aging and death.
Because you can't cure time. Going back to that car, the mechanic in that Formula One pit stop can fix a blown tire, but they can't fix the fact that a century has literally passed.
Precisely. And this is where the word inescapable carries so much philosophical and practical weight.
Yeah.
When a system that is built entirely on defeating problems encounters a problem that cannot be defeated, it doesn't know how to surrender.
It just keeps trying to fix it.
It just keeps deploying interventions, yeah.
Yeah.
Gawande points out that in these moments, what medicine can do technologically often runs completely counter to what it should do humanely.
That gap between can and should, that feels like the crux of the entire issue.
It really is.
Because just because we have the technology to, say, run another round of chemotherapy or perform another high-risk surgery or keep a failing organ pumping with a machine, it doesn't mean we actually should do it.
But the default setting of the medical establishment is always to push forward.
Always.
The training dictates that giving up is a failure. And Gawande draws on this extensive research and these deeply, deeply personal stories from his own practice and even his own family to show the collateral damage of that mindset.
It's heartbreaking.
It is. He reveals that by blindly pursuing survival, medicine often neglects what a patient might actually wish for beyond mere survival. It actively produces suffering.
Okay, so what does this all mean? I actually have to push back here for a second, because if I bring someone I love to the emergency room, or if I end up in a hospital bed myself, I fully expect the doctors to do literally everything in their power to keep me alive.
Sure, of course.
Isn't survival the whole point? Like, are we actually arguing that survival shouldn't be the baseline goal of healthcare?
Well, survival is absolutely the baseline of biology, but it is not the entirety of a human life.
Okay.
Think about that phrase from the text, mere survival. Biological survival, keeping a heart beating and lungs inflating, that's a prerequisite for experiencing life.
Right.
But a beating heart does not define a human experience.
But surely keeping the heart beating is always the right first step, isn't it?
It is, until the interventions required to keep that heart beating destroy the very quality of the life you are trying to save.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Let's look at the mechanism of how this suffering is actually produced in a modern hospital. When a patient's body is fundamentally shutting down due to old age or a terminal illness, the medical system doesn't just, offer a pill and a pat on the back.
No, it's intense.
The interventions are so aggressive. They involve inserting tubes into the airway, constantly drawing blood, hooking the patient up to machines that beep relentlessly 24 hours a day,
Which is terrifying.
and often isolating them in an intensive care unit, totally away from the familiar comforts of home and their family.
I mean, that sounds more like being trapped in a laboratory than being cared for.
That is the reality of prioritizing mere survival. To use an analogy, imagine you have a small grease fire in your kitchen.
Okay.
The fire department shows up, and instead of using a fire extinguisher, they decide to drip a literal ocean of water onto your house.
Just flood the whole thing.
Yes, they technically put out the fire. You survived, but your house is completely destroyed, the foundation is ruined, and you can no longer live there. That is what aggressive medical intervention often does to a frail body. It cures the immediate biological crisis by destroying the patient's remaining quality of life.
And they drop the ocean of water because that's literally the only tool they have for putting out fires.
Exactly.
The system is causing profound suffering, not out of malice, right? But out of this rigid, blind obsession with extending biological time, regardless of what that time actually looks like for the patient.
And that leads to a deeply uncomfortable truth, which is that the medical system actively ignores the human experience of the patient because it is entirely focused on the biological data on the monitors.
Okay, so if mere survival isn't the ultimate goal, and this default setting of aggressive intervention is actively causing unintended suffering, how is a doctor supposed to know what to actually aim for?
That's the big question.
Gawande's work provides a solution to this, and honestly, the concept itself is shockingly simple.
The solution he presents is almost startling in its simplicity. To find out what a patient's wishes are beyond mere survival, the medical system simply needs to ask them.
Just ask them.
We haven't been asking, but we can learn.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because on the surface, that sounds incredibly basic.
Right.
I mean, we are talking about a multi-trillion-dollar healthcare industry, decades of specialized, grueling medical training, cutting-edge technology, and the ultimate solution to this profound moral dilemma boils down to pulling up a chair and having a conversation.
Yeah, but, the simplest interventions are often the hardest to implement because they require dismantling long-standing power structures.
But wait, shifting away from the doctor making all the decisions sounds great in theory, but isn't just asking, putting an incredibly unfair burden on a terrified patient.
How do you mean?
Well, if I'm in the hospital, my world is falling apart. I don't have a medical degree. I don't understand the, physiological cascading failures happening in my body.
Sure.
How am I supposed to know what to choose? Doesn't just asking border on kind of abandoning the patient to figure it out themselves?
This raises an important question, right? What does asking actually look like in practice?
Yeah.
It is not about handing a terrified patient a multiple-choice menu of medical procedures and just leaving the room. That would absolutely be abandonment.
Okay, good.
To understand why this is so difficult, we have to look at the historical dynamic of medicine. For generations, medicine operated on a strictly paternalistic model.
The doctor is the authority figure.
Exactly. The doctor knows best. The doctor dictates the treatment plan, and the patient's only job is to comply.
Right. It's like, take these pills, show up for this surgery, we are going to fight this.
Moving away from that paternalistic model to a collaborative one is a massive paradigm shift. When Gawande talks about asking, he is talking about a guided, continuous, and often very difficult conversation about trade-offs.
Trade-offs.
Yes, it requires the doctor to step back and say, I have these tools, I can do another round of chemo, or we can put you on a ventilator. But before we do that, I need to know what you value most right now.
What are your absolute limits?
What does a good day look like for you?
So it's really about uncovering the patient's underlying goals, so the doctor can then use their medical expertise to meet those specific goals.
Precisely, and this involves brutal trade-offs.
Like what?
Well, the doctor might have to explain. If your primary goal is to be completely free of pain, we can do that. But the medication required will likely keep you unconscious.
Oh, wow.
If your goal is to be alert enough to talk to your grandchildren when they visit this weekend, you are going to have to endure a significant amount of physical pain. Which of those is more important to you?
Wow. That completely reframes the doctor's role. I mean, they aren't just mechanics trying to fix the car anymore. They act more like a guide, helping the patient navigate this incredibly dark and confusing forest.
But that requires a level of communication, time, and emotional humility that the medical systems has historically failed to practice.
Right, they aren't trained for that.
Doctors are trained to fight disease. They are rarely trained on how to sit in a room with a grieving family and discuss the limits of what medicine can achieve. That is why the admission, we haven't been asking, is so damning in the text. But Gawande couples that critique with a profound note of optimism, which is, we can learn.
We can learn, and we are learning because this realization didn't just stay confined to, academic medical journals. Gawande's work struck an absolute nerve in the culture.
Oh, massive.
The book spent well over a year on the New York Times bestseller list, and it drew overwhelming acclaim from literally every corner of the media landscape.
Right, the reviews were incredible.
Yeah, like Malcolm Gladwell calling it Gawande's most powerful book, Time magazine saying it should be mandatory reading for every American, and Catherine Boo calling it urgently important.
And we shouldn't gloss over why it struck such a chord. It wasn't because people suddenly developed an intense interest in abstract medical ethics.
No, not at all.
It was because almost everyone has either witnessed a loved one suffer through those hyper-medicalized, sterile final days in an ICU, or they are terrified of facing it themselves.
People are just desperate for an alternative script.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we can see how this one idea fundamentally altered the national conversation on aging and death. For decades, the entire dialogue surrounding the end of life has been steeped in anxiety and avoidance.
We use war metaphors all the time.
Yes. We talked about battling cancer, fighting decline, and when the battle was inevitably lost, the focus shifted to trying to engineer a peaceful final moment, what we often call a good death.
But Gawande's conclusion completely rejects that framing. He argues that the ultimate goal of healthcare in these moments is not a good death, but a good life, all the way to the very end.
That phrasing is so deliberate.
It is. Changing the focus from a good death to a good life totally flips the metric of success.
It redefines the very purpose of medicine. If the goal is a good death, the medical system is still focused on the event of dying.
Right.
But if the goal is a good life, autonomy is immediately handed back to the patient. Success is no longer measured by how many weeks we kept the biological machine running.
Success becomes like, did we manage this person's symptoms well enough so they could enjoy sitting on their back porch one last time?
Exactly.
Did we prioritize their mobility over an invasive surgery so they could walk their dog? Did we allow them to stay in their own home, surrounded by their own things, rather than in a sterile hospital room with fluorescent lights and alarms going off?
It transforms medicine from a master that dictates our treatment into a tool that we wield. The patient directs the tool to help them achieve whatever it is that gives their specific life meaning, right up until the very last chapter.
That is an incredibly empowering message.
It really is. It takes a phase of life that is defined by loss of control, and it hands a vital piece of that control back to the individual.
Let's take a breath and recap the journey we've just been on. We started by looking at how modern medicine's miraculous ability to solve biological problems, defeating infections and repairing injuries, accidentally created this massive blind spot. Because it only knows how to fight, it doesn't know how to handle the inescapable reality of aging. We explored how focusing strictly on mere survival, often results in aggressive interventions that destroy a patient's quality of life, literally causing suffering in the name of care.
Unintentionally, but yes.
And we uncovered how the remarkably difficult but simple act of asking patients about their trade-offs and priorities can redefine the entire system. It moves the goalpost from engineering a good death to ensuring a good life all the way to the end.
It is a masterful synthesis of the tension between our astonishing technological capabilities and our fundamental human vulnerability.
And to you listening right now, I want to emphasize that this isn't just an abstract philosophical debate. This is arguably the most practical information you can possess.
Absolutely.
You will inevitably interact with this system, whether you are currently advocating for an aging parent, maybe navigating a diagnosis with a partner, or eventually making choices for yourself. Knowing the mechanics of this system, knowing that you have the right to prioritize your wishes over mere survival, is a vital tool.
You don't have to be passive.
Exactly. You do not have to just get swept up in the machinery of intervention.
That is the ultimate empowering takeaway. And I think there is one final lingering thought we can draw from Gawande's exploration.
What's that?
Well, we've spent this time discussing how prioritizing a good life changes our approach to the end of our days. But consider the broader implications.
Okay.
If modern medicine's obsession with survival has inadvertently created a society that is absolutely terrified of the natural, inescapable processes of aging, how might having these difficult conversations right now, while we are vital and healthy, change us?
Oh, that's interesting.
If we stop hiding from our mortality and clearly define what makes life meaningful for us, we might just find we have a lot more clarity and courage to live boldly today.
Taking the fear out of the end gives us so much more power in the present. I love that. Well, thank you so much for exploring the mechanics of this with us today.
Thanks for having me. It was a great conversation.
It's been an absolute privilege diving into this with you, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.